Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the SS Vanguard, his eyes fixed on the glowing hologram in front of him. The message from the Galactic Council shimmered in the air, its cold words cutting deeper than any blade. For years, humanity had bent to their will, followed their rules, obeyed their laws, and accepted their limits. But this time, it was different. This time, they had gone too far. The Council's latest order was clear: dismantle Project Dawn immediately. Project Dawn wasn't just another experiment or a research facility, it was humanity's lifeline. A massive orbital habitat orbiting Earth's moon. It was designed to house millions, if Earth ever faced disaster. It was hope, security, and proof that humanity could stand on its own 2 feet. And now, the Council wanted to take it away. Daniel clenched his fists as he read the ultimatum again. His crew watched him silently, waiting for his reaction. Lieutenant Emily Dawson, his second-in-command, leaned against the console nearby, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her face was pale, but her jaw was set with determination. "They've crossed the line," she said finally, breaking the tense silence. "If we let them destroy Project Dawn, what's next? Do we just sit back while they strip us of everything?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He turned to look out the viewport, at the vast expanse of space. Stars twinkled in the distance, indifferent to the struggles of the beings who called this galaxy home. For so long, humanity had played by the Council's rules, hoping to prove itself worthy of respect. They had sacrificed, compromised, and endured humiliation after humiliation. But no matter what they did, the Council always saw them as inferior, children who needed guidance. "They don't see us as equals," Daniel said quietly, his voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside him. "To them, we're still primitives, lucky to be allowed scraps from their table." He turned back to face Emily. "But I'm done begging. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." Emily nodded, though worry flickered in her eyes. "And if we lose?" she asked. "If we push back and they crush us, there won't be anything left of Earth or of us." Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Do you think there will be anything left if we roll over and surrender? They'll keep taking until there's nothing left to take. At least this way, we have a chance, a slim one, maybe, but a chance." He straightened up and addressed the entire bridge crew. "Listen up," he said firmly. "This isn't just about Project Dawn. It's about every insult, every unfair law, every moment they treated us like we weren't good enough. We've spent centuries trying to earn their respect. Now it's time to demand it. Starting today, we stop asking permission and start taking action." The room buzzed with quiet murmurs as the weight of his words sank in. Some looked nervous, others seemed invigorated. Emily moved to stand beside him, her expression resolute. "What's the first step?" she asked. Daniel glanced at the hologram once more before shutting it off. The Council's message disappeared, leaving only darkness. "We gather allies," he replied. "Colonies, scientists, anyone willing to stand with us. Then we hit them where it hurts their resources. If we can cripple their supply lines, we buy ourselves time to plan something bigger." As the crew dispersed to carry out his orders, Daniel allowed himself a brief moment of doubt. What if this was a mistake? What if they failed? Shaking off the thought, he reminded himself why they were doing this, not for glory or revenge, but for survival. If humanity didn't fight now, it might never get another chance. Outside the ship, the stars continued to shine, oblivious to the rebellion brewing beneath their light. Deep in the shadows of the asteroid belt, far from the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council, a secret meeting was underway. Dozens of representatives from human colonies across the solar system had gathered inside a hidden outpost carved into the rock. The air was tense, electric with both fear and determination. This was the Free Stars Initiative Coalition, born out of desperation and defiance. Captain Daniel Hayes stood at the center of the room, his presence commanding even among the sea of passionate voices. To his left sat Lieutenant Emily Dawson, her sharp gaze scanning the crowd for signs of hesitation or dissent. Across the table were other key figures: Dr. Alan Pierce, a wiry man with glasses perched on his nose, who had spent years secretly developing advanced technology; Commander Rachel Brooks, leader of the Martian Defense Fleet, her uniform crisp despite the chaos around them; and Lucas Grayson, a young but ambitious officer representing the outer colonies. The debate raged late into the night. Some argued for diplomacy, suggesting they try one last appeal to the Council's sense of fairness. Others demanded immediate action, urging the group to strike first before the Council could retaliate against Project Dawn. Voices rose and clashed, each side convinced their approach was the only way forward. Finally, Daniel raised his hand, silencing the room. "We've been talking in circles," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Diplomacy hasn't worked, not once, not ever. Every time we ask nicely, they take more from us. Now it's our turn to act." Rachel leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. "Act how? We're outnumbered and outgunned. Their ships are faster, their weapons stronger. What exactly do you propose we do?" Daniel didn't flinch. "We hit them where it hurts, their resources. Without supplies, their fleets can't function. If we disrupt their convoys, we buy ourselves time to regroup and plan something bigger." Alan adjusted his glasses, clearing his throat nervously. "It's risky," he admitted, "but I might have something that could help." He pulled up a holographic display, showing schematics of a new energy weapon he'd been working on. "If we can get this into production, it could level the playing field." The room fell silent as everyone studied the design. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Emily spoke up, her tone measured. "Even with better weapons, we'll need coordination. Everyone here has to commit fully, no half measures. If we're going to fight, we fight together." Lucas nodded enthusiastically. "The outer colonies are ready. We've been living under their thumb for too long. Just tell us when and where to strike." Rachel hesitated, glancing at the others. "And what about Earth? If the Council finds out about this, they'll target the planet first." Daniel's expression hardened. "Then we make sure they don't find out. Not until it's too late." As the meeting dragged on, plans began to take shape. Supply routes were mapped, targets prioritized, and responsibilities divided. By the time the session ended, exhaustion hung heavy in the air. But there was also a spark of hope, a shared belief that maybe, just maybe, humanity could stand up to its oppressors. Later, as Daniel and Emily walked through the dimly lit corridors of the outpost, she turned to him. "Do you really think we can pull this off?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He stopped and looked at her, his face unreadable. "I don't know," he admitted. "But if we don't try, we lose everything anyway." Emily nodded, swallowing her doubts. Outside, the asteroids drifted silently in the void, unaware of the storm brewing within their midst. For the first time in centuries, humanity was ready to fight back, and nothing would ever be the same again. The plan was set, and the Free Stars Initiative moved quickly to put it into action. Under the cover of darkness, a small squadron led by Commander Rachel Brooks slipped through the asteroid belt, heading toward a critical supply convoy operated by the Galactic Council. The convoy carried vital resources, food, fuel, and advanced materials that kept the Council's forces running smoothly. If they could destroy it, the Council would feel the blow. Daniel Hayes stayed behind on the SS Vanguard, monitoring the mission from afar. He paced the bridge anxiously as updates trickled in. Emily Dawson worked beside him, her fingers flying over the console as she decrypted intercepted communications. "They haven't spotted us yet," she reported, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Rachel's team is in position." Out in the blackness of space, Rachel's squadron waited silently. Her ship, The Mars Vanguard was flanked by two smaller vessels, each crewed by volunteers from the Martian Defense Fleet. The convoy appeared on their scanners, a line of cargo ships escorted by a single warship. It was heavily guarded, but not invincible. "Stay sharp," Rachel whispered to her crew. "We only get one shot at this." She gave the signal, and the attack began. The squadron split up, drawing the escort ship away from the vulnerable cargo vessels. Lasers flashed across the void as the two sides exchanged fire. Rachel's ship took a direct hit, shaking violently, but she held her ground. "Keep firing," she shouted. "Don't let them regroup." Back on the SS Vanguard, Daniel watched the battle unfold on the main screen. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the railing. "Come on, Rachel," he muttered under his breath. Beside him, Emily focused intently on her console, rerouting power to the squadron's shields remotely. "Their shields are weakening," she said. "Just a little longer." The fight was brutal and chaotic. One of the smaller ships in Rachel's squadron was destroyed, its crew lost in an instant. But the sacrifice wasn't in vain. With the escort distracted, Rachel's ship broke through the line and unleashed a barrage of missiles at the cargo vessels. Explosions lit up the darkness as the supplies were obliterated. When the dust settled, Rachel's voice crackled over. "The comes mission accomplished," she said, though her tone was heavy with the cost of victory. "Convoy neutralized." On the SS Vanguard, the crew erupted into cheers, but Daniel didn't join them. He stared at the screen, his mind racing. This was just the beginning. The Council wouldn't take this lightly. They'd respond with overwhelming force. Still, for now, they had struck a blow, however small. Emily approached him, her face pale, but determined. "It worked," she said softly. "But what did we just start?" Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. "A war," he replied. "One we can't afford to lose." Later, as the squadron returned to the hidden outpost, Emily dug deeper into the intercepted transmissions. She discovered something chilling. A classified message from the Council, discussing contingency plans for Earth. The word sent a chill down her spine. Asterisk, if humanity cannot be controlled, then extermination may be necessary. Asterisk, her hands trembled as she showed the message to Daniel. "They're not just planning to punish us," she said, her voice shaking. "They're planning to wipe us out completely." Daniel's jaw tightened as he read the words. For a moment, he said nothing, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. Then he looked at Emily, his eyes blazing with resolve. "Then we make sure they never get the chance," he said firmly. "No matter what it takes." Outside, the stars twinkle innocently, unaware of the storm brewing below. Humanity had taken its first step toward freedom, but the road ahead promised to be long, dangerous, and filled with unimaginable sacrifices. The victory against the supply convoy should have been a moment of celebration, but instead, unease spread through the Free Stars Initiative. Whispers of betrayal began to circulate among the coalition. People grew suspicious, questioning who could be trusted. The Council's reach was vast, and paranoia took root like a weed. Everyone wondered, was there a spy in their midst? Daniel Hayes noticed the tension during one of their strategy meetings. Conversations were clipped, eyes darted around the room, and some avoided speaking altogether. Emily Dawson sat beside him, her brow furrowed as she listened to the murmurs. "This isn't good," she muttered under her breath. "If we don't find out what's going on, it'll tear us apart." Her words proved prophetic sooner than expected. A routine security sweep of the hidden outpost uncovered encrypted messages being sent to an unknown recipient. The source was traced back to Jack Monroe, a former diplomat who had once represented Earth in negotiations with the Galactic Council. Jack had joined the Free Stars Initiative early on, claiming he wanted to help humanity fight back. Now, it seemed his loyalty had always belonged elsewhere. Daniel confronted Jack personally in a small, dimly lit holding cell. Jack sat slumped in a chair, his face pale but defiant. Why? Daniel asked, his voice low and controlled. You know what they'll do to us if they win? Jack sneered, leaning back in his chair. And you think you can win against them? You're dreaming. They're stronger, smarter, better. All you're doing is signing your own death warrant. Daniel clenched his fists, struggling to keep his temper in check. So you sold us out? For what? Promises of mercy. Jack shrugged, unrepentant. Better alive under their rule than dead fighting a losing war. At least I'll survive when they crush you. Before Daniel could respond, Rachel Brooks stepped into the room. Her injuries from the recent battle still lingered, but her presence was commanding. Enough, she said sharply. We don't have time for this. She gestured to 2 guards waiting outside. Lock him up. We'll deal with him later. As Jack was dragged away, Rachel turned to Daniel. He's not the only one we need to worry about, she said grimly. If he was sending messages, someone on the council knows what we're planning. They'll come for us soon. Emily worked tirelessly to trace the messages Jack had sent, trying to determine how much damage had been done. What she found chilled her to the bone. Jack hadn't just passed along general information, he'd revealed details about Project Eclipse, the experimental weapon Dr. Alan Pierce was developing. If the council knew about it, they'd do everything in their power to stop it before it could be completed. We need to move faster, Emily told Daniel later that night. If they know about Project Eclipse, they'll target Alan's lab next. Daniel nodded, his expression grim. Then we protect it, double the defenses, reroute resources, whatever it takes, and we make sure Jack doesn't talk again. Rachel suggested a more permanent solution, but Daniel shook his head. No executions, he said firmly. Not yet. We hold on to whatever scraps of morality we have left, but we can't let him send another message. They isolated Jack in a secure chamber deep within the outpost, cutting off all communication. It wasn't enough to ease the distrust spreading through the ranks, but it bought them time. Time to prepare, time to adapt, and time to fight back, harder than ever. That night, as Daniel walked the quiet corridors of the outpost, he felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him. Every decision mattered now. Every choice carried consequences. Betrayal had struck at the heart of their movement. But it wouldn't break them not if he had anything to say about it. Outside, the asteroids drifted silently in the void, indifferent to the turmoil within. Humanity's rebellion teetered, on the edge of collapse, but Daniel refused to let it fall. They had started this fight, and they would see it through even if it meant facing enemies, both external and internal. Dr. Alan Pierce stood in the dimly lit lab, surrounded by humming machines and scattered blueprints. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the settings on the prototype device before him. Project Eclipse was their last hope, a weapon capable of destabilizing wormholes, the very network the Galactic Council relied on to maintain control across the galaxy. If it worked, they could sever the Council's ability to send reinforcements or supplies. If it failed, well, failure wasn't an option. Emily Dawson entered the lab quietly, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. She watched Alan for a moment, noting the exhaustion etched into his face. "How's it coming?" she asked, keeping her voice calm. Alan glanced up, pushing his glasses further up his nose. "It's ready for testing," he replied, though his tone betrayed uncertainty. "But there's no guarantee it'll work. If we make one wrong move, it could collapse the entire system or worse, alert the Council to what we're doing." Emily nodded, stepping closer to examine the device. It was small but intricate, its core pulsing with an eerie blue light. "We don't have a choice," she said firmly. "If we wait any longer, they'll come for us first." Alan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know. I just wish we had more time to refine it." Daniel Hayes arrived moments later, his expression grim. He had heard enough reports from Emily to understand the risks, but he also knew they couldn't afford to hesitate. "We're running out of options," he said, addressing both Alan and Emily. "If this works, it gives us a fighting chance. If it doesn't," he trailed off, unwilling to finish the thought. The three of them agreed to proceed with the test immediately. A nearby asteroid belt provided the perfect location, remote enough to avoid detection, but close enough to monitor closely. Emily volunteered to oversee the operation, knowing her technical skills would be crucial if something went wrong. Daniel hesitated, reluctant to put her in harm's way, but she insisted. "Someone has to do it," she said simply, "and you need to stay here to coordinate everything else." As the countdown began, Daniel paced anxiously outside the lab, unable to shake the feeling that disaster loomed just around the corner. On board the SS Vanguard, he watched the live feed of the test site, his eyes glued to the screen. The device floated in space, tethered to a small drone controlled remotely by Emily. "Activating sequence." Emily's voice crackled over the comms. Her hands moved quickly over the controls, initiating the delicate process. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. Then, a faint ripple appeared in the fabric of space, where the device hovered. The ripple grew stronger, distorting the surrounding area like water disturbed by a stone. "It's working," Alan exclaimed, his voice tinged with disbelief. But the celebration was short-lived. Alarms blared suddenly, warning of instability in the wormhole structure. "Shut it down," Alan shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "It's collapsing too fast." Emily fought to regain control, her fingers flying over the console. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she struggled to stabilize the reaction. "I can't stop it," she yelled. "The feedback loop is accelerating." On the bridge of the SS Vanguard, Daniel clenched the railing, his knuckles white. "Pull back," he ordered. "Get out of there now." Just as the situation seemed hopeless, Emily managed to trigger the emergency shutdown protocol. The device sputtered, the ripples fading slowly until space returned to normal. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of heavy breathing over the comms. "It's done," Emily finally said, her voice shaky but relieved. The wormhole collapsed, but the device held together. "We did it." Back on the ship, Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Alan rushed to analyze the data, confirming that the test had been a successful bait, a risky one. "This changes everything," Alan said, his earlier fatigue replaced by excitement. "With this, we can cripple their network." Daniel nodded, allowing himself a brief moment of satisfaction, but Alan's next words brought him back to reality. "Don't celebrate yet," the scientist warned. "Once they realize what we've done, they'll come for us with everything they've got." Outside, the stars twinkled innocently, unaware of the storm brewing below. Humanity had taken another step toward freedom, but the road ahead remained fraught with danger. They had built a weapon that could change the tide of the war, but using it would require courage, sacrifice, and nerves of steel.